Welcome to the 9th lesson of this course. And in this tutorial video, you'll learn how to work with items in a repeating group. Specifically, you'll see an example that shows how to allow users to add items to a list and how to remove items from a list. So let's get started. So lists are a very common feature in any application or website. For example, on the Zero Code Lab, we have a list of courses that users can watch. But they also have the option to add courses to a wish list by clicking this button. And when this icon turns red, it indicates that this course has been added to the wish list. And this is the wish list within the Zero Code website dashboard. And as you can see, these are the courses that have been added to our wish list. But we also have the ability to remove items or courses from the list. And we can do that by clicking the icon again and clicking confirm. As you can see, users have the ability to add or remove items from a list. So in this example, we'll be recreating the feature of adding and removing items or courses from a wish list. But before we start, let's check how our database is configured. So we can go to the Data tab and go to the Data Types. And you'll realize that I've went ahead and created a new data type called Course. And I created a new data field for this data type and I named it name. And that's simply the name of this course. And for the user data type, I've created a new data field called course wishlist. And that's simply a list of courses. And then within app data, I have went ahead and created example courses. So I clicked new entry and I entered the course name and I simply named them course 1 all the way until course 6. So we can start by going ahead to the Design tab, and you'll need to have the Material icon plugin installed. So in order to install it, you can go to Plugins and go to Add Plugins, and then within the search box, type in Material icon, and this is the plugin that you'll want to install. And we already have it installed on our app. So let's now add a text element to the page, and we can center that horizontally. And then we can name it courses. And then we can give it a style. Like so. Next, we can add a repeating group, which will basically contain our courses. And I'll just change the width to 750 and the height to 500. And I'll make the rows to 2 rows and then the columns to 2 columns. And then I'll just make it fixed width. And then I'll just ensure that this is centered horizontally like so. After that, we can insert a group within the repeating group. And I'll change the width to 300 and the height to 230. And I'll just ensure that that's centered horizontally as well as vertically. And then in order to style it, I'll go ahead and remove the style. And then I'll change the shadow style to outset. And this will basically give it some shadow in the background. Then I'll change the color to this blue, but then I'll decrease the transparency to this much. But before we move on, an important step is to set the type of content as well as to set the data source of this repeating group. And that's why you can see an issue that we have here, because it says, remember to fill out a type of content. So we know that this repeating group will contain a list of courses. So we can set the type of content to courses. And then another important step is to configure the data source. So if you don't set up the data source correctly, you will prevent Bubble from sending you the type of data that you want to show. So when you preview the app and you realize that the repeating group does not show the data that you want, you can come back to this data source to ensure that you have set it up correctly. So since we want to show a list of courses within our database, we can click to say, do a search for courses. So this will basically fetch all the courses that are within our database. So it's good to remember that a repeating group can contain any data type as long as it's a list of that specific data type. So for this example, we're showing a list of courses. So now that we have set up the type of content and the data source, we can go back to this group and we can also set the type of content to course, and then the data source will be current sales course. So this will show a specific course within our database. And now that we have done that, we can add a text element which will show the course name. And we can basically insert dynamic data and say parent group's course's name. And I'll just give that a width of 160 and a height of 40. And then I'll just move it up a bit. And then for the text style, I'd like to use a different font. And then I'll change the font color. And then I'll also center the text vertically, like so. So just to design it further, I'll go ahead and add a group. And I'll just make sure that that's flush to the sides, as well as the top. So I'll just make it a width of 300. Make sure it's within our group, like so. And then I'll give this group a background color of blue, but then I'll just drop down the transparency just a bit, like so. And then we can add an icon to the group. So we can grab a material icon, and then I'll just ensure that this is a perfect square by making the width 120 as well as the height. And then for the icon, I'll choose a school icon, which is a school hat. And then I'll center that horizontally as well as vertically. And then I'll give it a white color. So now we need a way to let the user select an icon in order to add this course to a wish list. So for that, we'll add another icon, which is called the bookmark. And I'll select this one. So initially I wanted to have this blue color, like so. So now we have an icon that the user can click in order to add this course to a wish list. But let's now add a workflow in order to implement that functionality. So we can start or edit the workflow. So remember that we want to add the current course that the user clicks to the user's wish list. So that means we can make changes to the current user. And then we'll want to go to the course wish list data field. And then we want to add the parent group's course. So this course will be added to the user's wish list. But we want to do this only when this course is not within the user's wish list already. So we'll say only when current user's wish list doesn't contain parent group's course. So this simply means we're only going to add this course to the wish list if the user doesn't have this course within their wish list already. So that will happen when this material icon is clicked. So we also want to indicate using this icon that the user has indeed added this course to a wish list. And we want to indicate that through color. So we can add a condition, and then we can say that when current user's course wish list contains parent group's course, then we want to change the icon to a different variant of the bookmark, which is this one. And we want to change the color to red. So we expect that when the user clicks this icon, it will turn red since it will show that they have added this course to their wish list. And then we want to add the functionality that when the user clicks this icon again, after they have added the course to their wish list, we want to now remove that course from their wish list. So in order to do that, we can go to our workflows and then we want to split this event. So we can copy it and then paste it. And then this one will basically remove the course only when the current user's course wish list contains the current course. So this event basically removes the course and this event basically adds the course. So one tip is that you can actually color code these workflows in order to know what event they perform. So since this event adds the course, we can change the color to green to show that it adds. And since this event removes the course, we can change the color to red. So this way, it's easy to identify what takes place with each event. We know that this one adds a course and this one basically removes a course. So we can go back to our page and add another repeating group, which will show the wish list of the user. But I'll need to first increase the height of this page in order to have more space. And then I'll also duplicate this repeating group and drag it down. And I'll center it horizontally. But this time around, this repeating group won't show all the courses within the database. Rather, we want to show all the courses within the current user's wish list. So to do that, we'll need to edit the data source. So instead of saying search for courses, we can clear this expression and then we can say current user's course wish list. And this evaluates to a list of courses, but only those that belong to the wish list of the current user. So this is another way to filter your data source in order to get what you want. But as a side note, I'd like to inform you that this option of searching for courses also allows you to add a constraint. So this means that you can filter out the data source according to what you want. For example, we can add a new constraint and then only look for a certain course that has been created by the current user. So if this course has been created by the current user within the database, then this data source will fetch out all the courses within the database, but only those that have been created by the current user. So this is another way to filter out your data. But that was just additional information. So we'll go back to saying current user's course wish list. So now this will be the wish list that the current user will have, and any courses added to this wish list will be shown here. So we want the user to be able to remove items from the course wish list, and that can be done through this icon again. So we can start or edit workflow, and then we can add the action that makes changes to the current user, and then we can go to the course wish list, and then we want to say remove parent group's course, and this will remove the course from the wish list. So our feature is basically done. So let's now click to preview. So as you can see, we have our list of courses here, and then we also have our wish list, which is currently empty. But when we click this icon, we can see that the icon turns red and the course has been added to our wish list. And we can also click course 2 as well as course 3. And as you can see, they've been added to the wish list. But we can also remove courses by clicking this icon again. And as you can see, course 1 was removed from our wish list. And we can remove course 2 and only course 3 remains. But within our wish list, we can also remove courses. So when I click on this icon, you can see that every course has been removed from the wish list. So this is basically how you can handle items within repeating group and allow your users to remove or add items in a list. And an additional feature that we can have is to show a placeholder on the wish list that basically notifies the user when the wish list is empty. So we can have something that says your wish list is empty. So in order to do that, let's go back, and then here by the wish list, we can place a text element here in the center. So in order to see exactly what's happening, we'll go and hide this repeating group. You can simply click on it, and then on the elements tree, you can go to the eye icon and hide it like so. So we want to place the placeholder right here. So we can go to the text element and drag it on the screen. So here we can say your wish list is empty. And then we can add a style. So now we want to add a condition that will basically make this element show only when the wish list is empty. So that means we can say that when current user's course wish list is empty, we want to show this. So how can we do that here? So we're given the option that says count. So this basically refers to the number of items within this list. So we can add count. And then sometimes you may be tempted to click the option that says is empty. But sometimes this may not work as expected, but I'll show you that in a minute. So let's now keep it like so. And then we'll say this element is visible. Yes. So we are now saying this element should only be visible when the wish list is empty. So let's check to see if it works. So we'll refresh the page, and then we'll add a course to the wish list. As you can see, the wish list is not empty, so it's not working as expected. And perhaps you may be tempted to add an opposing condition. For example, we can copy and paste this expression, and we can say that when the count is not empty, in other words, if there is something, then this element is visible, no. So when the count is not empty, in other words, there's something in there, this element is visible, no. In other words, we want to hide it when there's something in there. So let's now see if these conditions will work as expected. So I'll refresh the page. So currently our wish list has something in there, and then when we remove it, we see that our placeholder has disappeared. So you may be wondering or asking yourself, why is this so? So what I realized to work best is that instead of using is empty or is not empty, it's best to use a number. So for example, let's say when the count is 0, in other words, it's empty, then we want to show this element. And for this condition, we want to say when the count is not 0, in other words, there's something in there, then this element is visible. No, we want to hide it. So let's now see if these conditions will work. So we have refreshed our page, and we can see that our placeholder is visible. But let's make sure that we center that horizontally by selecting center horizontally. And then perhaps we can remove the separator from these repeating groups. Say none. And then we move to this one, and we'll say none. And then we'll refresh the page. Right, so our placeholder is currently in the center. So let's now see what happens when we add something to the wish list. So we can add course 6. And as you can see, our placeholder has disappeared. And when our wish list is empty, our placeholder is visible. So in other words, our conditions that state that when the wish list is 0 or when the wish list is not 0 work best. So just to prove that in fact these courses get added to the user's wish list, let's now log in as Samantha Rose. So let's say run as. And then we want to add courses to Samantha's wish list. So we'll add course 1 and add course 3. So they're currently visible on the UI, but let's now check the database to prove that in fact they have been added to Samantha Rose. So we'll just refresh the page in order to get the latest data. As you can see, Samantha Rose currently has 2 courses within her wish list. So as you can see, our feature works as expected. And that concludes lesson 9. But in the next video, we'll learn more about how to build a drop-down menu, which is a common feature in most websites and applications. So thanks a lot for watching this lesson, and let's continue in the next one.